Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. A sleepy summary. It is the quiet end of summer, and Harry Potter is lying in his tiny bedroom at number 4 Privet Drive, doing his homework by the thin beam of a torch under his blankets, because his aunt and uncle do not approve of magic or homework about magic, or anything at all that reminds them that their nephew is not like other boys. Harry is 13 years old now, going on 14, and he has spent yet another summer in this house that does not feel like home, sleeping in a room that used to be a cupboard, eating meals where he is mostly ignored, and counting the days until the 1st of September when he can go back to Hogwarts, which is the only place in the world where Harry Potter truly belongs. He writes his essay about witch burning by wandlight and tucks it carefully away, and outside the window the summer night is warm and still, and somewhere far away, in a prison on the edge of the North Sea, a man with long tangled hair is pressing his face against cold iron bars and thinking about a boy with green eyes. Harry's birthday comes, and with it some wonderful things. A card from Ron Weasley with a picture of a tiny dancing animals on the front and a bus ticket tucked inside it. A card from Hermione Granger, who writes in her neat, careful hand that she is somewhere sunny with her parents and hopes he is having a good summer. And most exciting of all, a large and rather impressive birthday cake from Hagrid, the gamekeeper at Hogwarts, which arrives dented and a little squashed, but perfectly edible and smelling gloriously of chocolate. Harry's heart lifts. He has friends, real ones, and this is not nothing. And there is a letter from the school, too, informing him of this year's required equipment, and on the list he notices something new, a book called The Monster Book of Monsters, which he has already somehow managed to acquire, and which is currently cowering under his bed, having attempted to remove several of his fingers. Being a wizard is sometimes very inconvenient. But then the trouble starts, as trouble in Harry's life has a way of doing, quietly and quickly and all at once. His Uncle Vernon's sister Marge is coming to stay. Aunt Marge is not technically Harry's aunt at all. She is Vernon's sister, a large and florid woman who raises bulldogs and who has, over the years, said a great many unkind things about Harry and about Harry's parents, and Harry has generally bitten his tongue and endured it because doing otherwise causes him trouble at home. But this time, after several days of gritted teeth and ignored insults, when Aunt Marge says something particularly nasty about Harry's mother, who died trying to protect him, who loved him fiercely, who Harry never got to know, something inside Harry comes loose. He doesn't mean to do it. He doesn't even reach for his wand. But Aunt Marge begins to swell, slowly at first, and then with increasing speed, her face reddening like a round, horrible balloon, and she floats up toward the ceiling and through the dining room door, and Harry watches it happen with a feeling that is equal parts horror and fierce, aching satisfaction. The Dursleys, who are the worst people Harry knows, and perhaps among the worst people in any given room at any given time, have spent the summer pretending Harry does not exist, which is honestly the preferable arrangement. His cousin Dudley is large and spoiled and not especially interesting, and his Uncle Vernon is large and red-faced and obsessed with the correct maintenance of normalcy, and his Aunt Petunia is thin and watchful and carries, somewhere inside her a grief for her dead sister that she has never once allowed to surface, and that Harry suspects drives everything about her that is cold toward him. They do not talk about this. They do not talk about much of anything. Harry eats his small meals and does his homework secretly and counts the days, and the summer stretches long and hot and ordinary around Privet Drive, while somewhere in the wider world, broomsticks are being ridden and owls are flying, letters and cauldrons are bubbling, and all the magical life Harry belongs to continues without him until September. He packs his trunk. He is, he supposes, expelled from Hogwarts. He might be arrested. He doesn't know what will happen next. He hauls his trunk out into the dark summer street and sits on it and feels the enormity of what he has done settle over him like a cold fog, and he waits. And then, with a wheeze and a groan and a great blast of violet light, the night bus arrives, this improbable triple-decker, staffed by a conductor named Stan Shunpike, who is very pleased to meet Harry Potter, and it takes Harry rattling and lurching and crashing through the nighttime streets all the way to the Lakey Cauldron in London, where the Minister for Magic himself, Cornelius Fudge, is waiting for him. Harry expects to be in terrible trouble. He is not. The Ministry is, it seems, inclined to be lenient with Harry Potter under the current circumstances, and the current circumstances are these. A man named Sirius Black has escaped from Azkaban. This is a thing that has never happened before in all the centuries that Azkaban has stood, and the wizarding world is afraid. Sirius Black was a supporter of Voldemort, one of his most devoted followers, the papers say, the one who betrayed Harry's parents to him 13 years ago, the one who then killed 13 people with a single curse. A loyal Death Eater who has been locked away for 12 years and who has now somehow gotten out, and who is believed to be coming for Harry. Harry sits in his little room at the Lakey Cauldron in the warmth and noise of Diagon Alley just below his window, and he reads the newspapers and turns this information over in his mind like a stone in his hand, feeling all its edges. A man who helped murder his parents is somewhere out there. He should be frightened. He thinks he might be. But underneath the fear there is something else, something older and harder, and it hums quietly in his chest when he reads the name Sirius Black and thinks about the night in Godric's Hollow when he was 1 year old and everything changed. He spends a pleasant few weeks in Diagon Alley all the same, eating ice cream and visiting the magical menagerie and meeting up with Ron and Hermione and the whole Weasley family, who are tanned and happy from a trip to Egypt to visit their eldest son Bill. Ron has a very old and very fat and very ugly rat named Scabbers, who has been looking poorly of late. Hermione has a new cat named Crookshanks, a large bandy-legged orange creature with a pushed-in face who is immediately and relentlessly interested in Scabbers, and this causes some tension. But mostly things are warm and good and golden, the way late August in a magical alley full of brightly lit shops and the smell of roasting chestnuts can be, and Harry tries not to think too hard about what the coming year might bring. Then it is September 1st, and they are on the Hogwarts Express, and there is a new face in their compartment, a professor sleeping. He is youngish but looks tired in a deep way, as if something has worn him down over a long time, and his robes are patched, and his hair is beginning to grey at the temples, and there is a battered suitcase on the rack above his head with a nameplate on it that reads Professor R.J. Lupin. This is, they will learn, the new defense against the dark arts teacher, a subject which has gone through one catastrophic instructor per year for as long as anyone can remember, and they leave him sleeping and talk quietly among themselves, and outside the windows the landscape turns from summer gold to something grayer and cooler as they travel north. Then the train slows. Then it stops. Then the lights go out. And then a cold so profound it feels personal, so deep it seems to reach through the skin directly into something more essential, settles over the compartment like a hand pressing down, and the door opens and something enters. It is tall, or it gives the impression of height, and it is cloaked, and it has no face that can be seen, only dark, and Harry feels something horrible happening inside his chest, a draining away of warmth and light and hope, and he hears a woman screaming, a voice he doesn't recognize, but that seems to come from inside him, and then he falls. He wakes on the floor. Professor Lupin is awake now, holding a piece of chocolate out toward Harry, and the expression on his face is not pitying exactly, but is careful, the way adults look when they know something is wrong and are deciding what to say about it. He tells them the creature was a Dementor, one of the guards of Azkaban, and that they are searching the train for Sirius Black. He gives everyone chocolate and says, "Eat it, trust me." And when Harry takes a bite, the warmth floods back into him and he breathes again, though he can still hear the echo of that screaming somewhere at the back of his mind. Hogwarts in third year is different from Hogwarts in first year, as all returning years are different. The way a beloved place becomes more layered and complex the more you know it. Harry knows the staircases now, knows which ones shift on Thursday afternoons, knows the shortcuts and the portraits that are friendly and the ones that are not. He has friends. He has history here. But there are new things too, Dementors at the gates, which no one is pleased about, gliding slowly back and forth in their dark robes, making the air cold and hopeless whenever they pass too near. There are new teachers. There is the subject called divination taught by Professor Trelawney in a tower that is always too warm and smells of incense, where Trelawney herself is a small dramatic woman festooned in shawls who gazes into crystal balls and reads tea leaves and predicts death with great enthusiasm. And Harry quickly develops the strong suspicion that she is mostly making things up. And there is Professor Lupin teaching defense against the dark arts in a way that is genuinely, unexpectedly wonderful, actually teaching them things, actually letting them practice, looking at each of them as if he believes they can do this, which none of their previous defense professors had quite managed. The castle itself settles around them as it always does, and Harry lets it. There is something Hogwarts does to a person who has lived there, who has eaten at its long tables and slept in its tower bedrooms and learned the particular music of its moving staircases. It becomes the texture of your own interior life, so that when you are away from it in the long empty summers, you carry it with you like a note you hum without realizing. The great hall at breakfast with morning light pouring through the enchanted ceiling and the owls arriving with the post. The library where Hermione disappears and resurfaces hours later with ink on her nose and a look of faint, triumphant concentration. The Gryffindor common room in the evenings, firelight and chess games, and the particular comfortable smallness of belonging somewhere. Harry has needed this. Harry, who grew up in a cupboard under the stairs and then a small bedroom, and who has never quite been able to explain to anyone what it feels like to arrive somewhere and discover that it is exactly shaped like you, that there is a place in the world that fits. Harry needs Hogwarts the way some people need the sea or the mountains, needs it in his bones. And every September when the express arrives and the castle rises up beyond the lake at twilight, he feels something settle in him that has been restless all summer. But this September has brought Dementors, stationed at the school gates on ministry orders because of Sirius Black, and the students learn to feel them before they see them. The temperature dropping a degree or two, the particular quality of the air changing, happiness becoming somehow effortful, as if the natural state of things is actually misery and joy is only maintained by active will. Dumbledore does not seem pleased about their presence and says so in his quiet way at the opening feast, warning students not to give the Dementors reason to act and assuring them the castle itself is safe. Snape's face, watching this, is unreadable as always, which for Snape covers a very large range of possible internal states. The feast is magnificent. The ceiling shows a stormy autumn sky. Harry eats until he is full and sits among his friends and feels all right. Their first lesson with Lupin involves a boggart, a creature that lives in dark enclosed spaces and takes the shape of whatever you fear most. One by one, the students face it and practice the charm to repel it, the key being to imagine your greatest fear as something ridiculous, and Lupin watches with a quiet pleasure as Neville Longbottom, sweet, nervous Neville, who is frightened of everything and especially of Professor Snape, imagines Snape in his grandmother's vulture-topped hat and handbag, and the whole class dissolves into helpless laughter. It is a good lesson. Harry is not allowed to face the boggart, which he initially minds, though later Lupin will explain that he was afraid Harry's boggart would take the shape of Voldemort, and Harry thinks about this and realizes that his boggart would not have been Voldemort at all, it would have been the Dementor, which is perhaps a more complicated fear. The fear not of a person or a thing, but of the feeling itself, the cold stripping away of every good thought you have ever had. The year accumulates around them in the particular way Hogwarts years do, dense with lessons and homework and the social texture of school life and the occasional extraordinary thing that would be impossible anywhere else. In herbology, they tend mandrakes. In care of magical creatures, now taught by Hagrid, who is thrilled and terrified in equal measure, they meet a hippogriff named Buckbeak, a magnificent creature, eagle above and horse below, proud and dangerous and beautiful all at once. Lupin teaches them how to repel boggarts, and then grindylows, and then red caps, and each lesson they learn a little more, and each time Harry faces something difficult, he grows a little more certain that he can face it. He practices Quidditch in the cold autumn air, and the Dementors make him swoon off his broom during a match in the rain, and he falls and the broom is destroyed by the whooping willow, and he sits in the hospital wing afterward feeling that particular flavor of misery that is made of failure and cold and mud, and Lupin teaches him, one-on-one in his office, the Patronus charm. The Patronus charm is a very advanced piece of magic, Lupin says. It is not something normally taught to third years. But it is the only charm that works against Dementors, and Harry needs it, and Lupin is the kind of teacher who believes that what students need they should have if he can give it. The charm requires you to concentrate on a very happy memory, the happiest you have, and use it as a shield. Harry tries and tries in the evenings in Lupin's office, listening to the recording of a Dementor approaching and feeling the cold reach into him and hearing that screaming voice, and every time he hears the voice he falls. But he gets back up. He tries again. The memory he uses is of the first time he ever rode a broomstick, that feeling of joy and freedom and being very suddenly excellent at something. And slowly, slowly, a silver wisp of light begins to form at the end of his wand. In between all of this, Hermione is being strange. She is taking a suspiciously large number of classes, more than seem possible given the actual structure of the timetable, and she is always tired and always a little snappish, and always somehow in a class she wasn't just in. Ron says she must be doing extra studying voluntarily, which none of them can quite imagine, and also Crookshanks continues to terrorize Scabbers, and also Ron and Hermione begin having small arguments about this and other things. Harry largely stays out of it and reads about Sirius Black and watches the Dementors from his window and practices his Patronus. Third years are allowed to visit Hogsmeade, the all-wizarding village near Hogwarts, on certain weekends. This is a privilege and a pleasure. Cobblestone streets, the sweet shop Honeydukes with its extraordinary array of things to eat, the three broomsticks warm and noisy and smelling of butterbeer, the joke shop Zonko's full of things that would give Uncle Vernon a stroke. Harry cannot go. His permission slip needs a parent or guardian's signature, and the Dursleys, who will sign nothing related to magic on principle, have refused, and Harry stands at the gates in the cold on the first Hogsmeade weekend, watching his classmates pour cheerfully past, and tries not to feel too sorry for himself, which he manages imperfectly. Fred and George Weasley, who are the funniest people Harry knows and who have a gift for making things marginally better, give him something before they leave: the Marauder's map. It is a piece of parchment that appears blank, and when you touch your wand to it and say, "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good," it reveals itself to be a complete and extraordinary map of all of Hogwarts, showing every room, every corridor, every secret passage, every person within it as a labeled dot moving in real time. Harry stares at it for a long time. He uses one of the secret passages it reveals to get to Hogsmeade on his own, moving through the underground tunnel to a cellar in Honeydukes, emerging into the warm, sugary air of the shop with the particular satisfaction of a problem solved. He finds Ron and Hermione. He has butterbeer. It is not a bad afternoon. There is something else that afternoon, though. Harry hides under his invisibility cloak and overhears a conversation among the teachers in the Three Broomsticks that he was not meant to hear, and what he hears rewrites things he thought he knew. He hears the story of Sirius Black and his parents from people who were there. He hears it cold and clear, and he walks back to Hogwarts alone in the grey afternoon with the weight of it on him, and the map in his pocket, and the feeling of having been lied to, not exactly lied to, but kept from things, which sometimes feels the same. He is 13 years old, and the bones of his history are still being assembled around him, and he is not always sure he can carry them. Snape, in the manner of Snape, finds the Marauder's map later that year and comes very close to using it against Harry before Lupin intervenes and claims the map as his own to examine. Snape leaves with the expression of a man who is certain he is being made a fool of and cannot prove it, which is a particular expression that only Snape can make, compressed and sharp as a slammed door. Lupin keeps the map and does not comment further on it, but he takes Harry aside and says quietly that he is worried about Harry's use of certain passages, that he is worried about Harry encountering Sirius Black alone, and that he trusts Harry will be careful. Harry says he will be. They look at each other, these two, and Harry sees something in Lupin's face that he cannot quite name, some knowledge, some weight, something that Lupin is carrying with the same quiet endurance he carries everything. Malfoy, as Malfoys do, causes problems. During the first Care of Magical Creatures lesson, Draco Malfoy deliberately provokes Buckbeak, ignores Hagrid's very clear instructions about approaching hippogriffs respectfully, and Buckbeak slashes his arm in response, not seriously, but enough. Malfoy milks this injury for weeks, performing great dramatic wincing pain at every opportunity, and his father writes a letter to the school, and there is a hearing, and by the time Christmas comes, there is real and terrible possibility that Buckbeak will be executed for it, which devastates Hagrid, who loves Buckbeak as he loves all creatures, and who did not deserve to have this dumped in his enormous lap in his very first term of teaching. Christmas at Hogwarts. Harry and Ron stay behind while Hermione goes home for the holiday, and they have the castle mostly to themselves, the great corridors echoing and peaceful, fires burning in quiet common rooms, snow lying soft and blue outside all the windows. Harry gets a firebolt, a new broomstick, top of the line, best broom ever made, wrapped in paper with no note attached. It is a wonderful and mysterious gift. It is also, Professor McGonagall points out with her characteristic lack of sentimentality, potentially a gift from Sirius Black, who is known to have access to the Black family fortune and who might, theoretically, have sent Harry something designed to hurt him, which is why she confiscates it immediately and sends it for testing. Harry minds this very much. Ron thinks this is probably sensible. Hermione, upon her return, sides with McGonagall, which causes a rift between her and Harry and Ron that takes several weeks and some very awkward meals to resolve. The broomstick is eventually returned, intact, pronouncedly unenchanted, and Harry takes it out in the grey January air, and it is, he must admit, worth all the waiting. Winter turns, and the year deepens. Harry begins to piece together fragments of the story he doesn't quite know yet, the story of his parents and Sirius Black, and a night 12 years gone. He hears it in bits and pieces from different mouths. He learns that his father James and Sirius Black were best friends at Hogwarts, inseparable, part of a group of 4 boys who called themselves the Marauders and who were famous for their mischief. He learns that when Voldemort was hunting Harry's family, James and Lily went into hiding using a charm called the Fidelius charm, which conceals a secret inside a living person, the secret keeper, so that no one can find you unless the keeper reveals your location. The keeper was supposed to be Sirius, and Sirius gave that secret to Voldemort, and Harry's parents died. And then Sirius found another of the four Marauders, a man named Peter Pettigrew, on a street in London, and a confrontation occurred, and there was an explosion, and when it was over, 12 Muggles and Peter Pettigrew were dead, and Sirius was laughing at what no one knows or understands. And he was taken to Azkaban, where he sat for 12 years among the Dementors, and whatever was inside him, if there had been anything good, was taken from him piece by piece by piece. Harry listens to this story and feels it settle in him like something cold and final. He thinks, when I find Sirius Black, I will kill him. He doesn't say this out loud very often, but he thinks it. He is 13 years old, and he thinks this with a clarity that frightens him a little when he examines it closely, and so mostly he doesn't examine it closely. He just carries it. Spring. The Quidditch season in full swing. Harry is extraordinary on his firebolt, a fact which even Malfoy cannot deny, and Gryffindor wins match after match. There is other trouble though. Ron's rat Scabbers goes missing from Ron's pocket, and there is orange fur nearby which points unmistakably to Crookshanks, and Ron is devastated because Scabbers has been in his family for 12 years and now seems to be dead, and he is furious at Hermione, and Hermione cries in a way that is quieter and more devastating than dramatic crying usually is, and Harry is caught in the middle and doesn't know what to say to either of them, and the whole business is deeply uncomfortable. But this March evening, they go to Hagrid to offer comfort, and it does not feel like nothing. Hagrid makes tea in cups the size of small buckets and presses shortbread on them, and his hands are shaking slightly, this enormous man, because he is afraid. He is afraid of what will happen to Buckbeak, and he is afraid of what it would mean, that a creature he chose and cared for would die because of something Malfoy did, because of a boy who ignored good instructions and provoked an animal, and then ran weeping to his father. Hagrid loves his creatures with a completeness that does not edit itself for reasonableness. He loved the Hungarian horntail dragon that once tried to kill Harry's father's friend. He loved a three-headed dog named Fluffy. He would love a basilisk if someone gave him the chance. He is not always wise about this, but he is always sincere, and the sincerity of it is hard to sit next to when things go wrong for him, when the world's cruelty lands squarely in his giant lap. Buckbeak's hearing comes, and despite Hermione preparing an enormously detailed legal appeal, the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures rule against him. Buckbeak is sentenced to death. Hagrid is crushed. They visit him the evening before the scheduled execution, trying to offer some comfort, and it is there that Ron reaches into his pocket and finds Scabbers, alive, frightened, thin, but unmistakably present. The rat has been hiding. Relief all around. They say goodbye to Hagrid and start back up toward the castle, and then everything happens very quickly. A dog seizes Scabbers from Ron's hand. It is a large black dog, a dog Harry has seen before and half noticed, and it drags Ron by the arm toward the base of the Whomping Willow, and Harry and Hermione go after them, and the tree beats them back, and Crookshanks, inexplicably, as if he knows what he is doing, presses a knot on the tree's trunk, and the thrashing branches go still. They follow through a tunnel under the tree that leads to the shrieking shack, which is not haunted, as everyone has always said, but is merely the place where someone was hidden long ago when the moon was full, and transformation was necessary, and the sounds coming from inside would have frightened anyone passing by. In the shrieking shack, they find Sirius Black. He is gaunt and hollow-eyed and almost skeletal, the face from the wanted posters stretched thin over sharpened bone, hair lank and wild, and he is holding Scabbers with a grip that is both desperate and satisfied, and Harry raises his wand and there is a moment, one still and terrible moment, where he has the chance to do what he has been telling himself he wants to do. Then Professor Lupin arrives, and the strangest thing happens. Lupin looks at Sirius and says, "You found him." And Sirius says, "I thought you'd come," and they embrace. And Harry cannot make sense of this because the whole year he has been told that Sirius Black is dangerous, that he is Voldemort's man, that he betrayed Harry's parents, and now Lupin, who Harry trusts more than almost anyone, is embracing him, and Harry's wand hand is shaking, and Hermione is crying, and Ron is on the floor with a broken leg. There is a conversation then that rewrites everything. It comes out haltingly, piece by piece, Sirius and Lupin filling in each other's gaps, both of them looking at Harry with an expression he cannot quite read. The story is this: the secret keeper was not Sirius. At the last moment, fearing he was too obvious a choice, James Potter switched to someone else, someone no one would suspect. Peter Pettigrew. It was Peter who betrayed James and Lily to Voldemort. And Peter, when Sirius confronted him on that London street, had cut off his own finger and transformed into a rat and disappeared into the sewer, leaving behind enough to condemn Sirius for 12 murders and his own supposed death. Peter has been hiding as a rat for 12 years. He has been hiding as Scabbers. He has been sleeping in the same bed as Ron Weasley. Hermione says this is impossible. Then she looks at the rat in Sirius's grip and goes very still, the way Hermione goes when she is rapidly reconsidering everything she thought she knew. Lupin says the Marauders, James, Sirius, Peter, and Lupin himself, were animagi, wizards who can transform into animals at will, and that he himself is a werewolf, which is why the whole enterprise was undertaken in the first place, so that when Lupin transformed each month, his friends could be with him in animal form, which was safer than being alone. And is this wonderful and awful and complicated secret that he has carried his whole life? Harry looks at Lupin and Sirius and feels the story of his parents refashioning itself around him, and something loosens in his chest, some tightly held grief beginning to unknot itself. They force Peter to transform back from rat to man. He is small and pale and sweating, and he falls on his knees and begs, and there is something deeply pitiable and deeply repellent about him, the way a person can be when they have spent their life choosing the safe thing and the self-interested thing until there is very little else left of them. He says he had no choice. He says Voldemort would have found another way. He says James would have understood. Sirius and Lupin are very quiet when he says this. Harry says he will not let them kill Peter, not because he deserves mercy, Harry says, but because his father would not have wanted his best friends to become killers for it. They will take him to the castle. They will hand him to the Dementors. He will go to Azkaban where he belongs. Sirius agrees. Lupin agrees. They are in this moment exactly the people Harry's father loved, and Harry can see it. Then the cloud moves from the moon, and Lupin transforms. He has not had his potion, his wolfsbane potion, which Snape has been brewing for him all year, which keeps his mind intact during the change. And what comes out of him now has no mind in it at all, only the wolf. And the wolf is large and terrible and confused by the smell of so many people, and chaos breaks open around them on the moonlit hillside. Peter escapes in the confusion. Sirius transforms into the dog and fights the wolf and gives the others time to run. And then later Harry finds Sirius collapsed by the lake. And the Dementors come, dozens of them, and no Patronus Harry can cast is strong enough to hold them all back. And the cold presses in, and the screaming starts inside his head again, and the darkness takes him. He wakes in the hospital wing. Sirius has been captured and is locked in Professor Flitwick's office at the top of a tower, awaiting the Dementor's kiss, a fate worse than death, the removal of a person's soul, leaving only a living body with nothing inside it. Cornelius Fudge is there, and he has decided that Sirius Black is guilty, and that is that. And the fact that Harry and Hermione are saying otherwise is the distressed imagination of children. And Peter Pettigrew is dead is the official record, and that is the official record. And the Dementor's kiss will be administered at midnight. The unfairness of it is enormous and blunt, and Harry can feel it pressing against his sternum. And Dumbledore stands in the doorway looking at them with those particular eyes he has, those eyes that seem to be thinking about several things at once, several futures simultaneously, and he says, "You have a chance to do more good tonight than you know," and he says more than one innocent life is at risk, and he says, looking at Hermione with something that is almost amusement, 3 turns ought to do it. Hermione reaches under her robes and takes out a small golden timepiece on a chain, a time turner, which is how she has been attending all those extra classes. She has been going back in time, tiny turns, repeating hours. They look at each other, then they use it, 3 turns. They stand in the empty entrance hall, and the last 3 hours unspool around them, and they are in the past, in the early evening, and everything that has happened has not happened yet but will, and they know the shape of it, and their task is to change 1 or 2 crucial things while staying unseen by their past selves. It is one of the most extraordinary sequences of events Harry will ever be part of, and it has a dreamlike quality even as he lives it, the sense of sliding alongside time rather than through it. They free Buckbeak, untying him from the post where he has been waiting for the executioner's axe, coaxing him with dead ferrets from Hagrid's pumpkin patch, leading him away into the darkness of the forest just as the axe falls on nothing, and the Committee for the Disposal of Dangerous Creatures stands in confusion looking at an empty post. They wait. They watch their past selves from a distance. They avoid being seen because they know what the rules are. You must not be seen. You cannot change what has happened. You can only do what you apparently did when you didn't yet know you were doing it. The past is already written. They are just filling in the part of it they didn't know about yet. Then they fly. Buckbeak carries them up the side of Hogwarts Castle to the window of the tower room where Sirius is imprisoned, and Harry gives Sirius his wand back, and there is a moment, brief and fierce, and illuminated by moonlight, where Sirius holds Harry's face in both hands and looks at him with an expression of profound tenderness, and says, "You are truly your father's son." And Harry feels something enormous and wordless move through him, the sensation of being known by someone who loved your parents, of the past reaching forward to touch you. Then Sirius goes, climbing onto Buckbeak's back, the two of them rising into the night sky, and Harry watches until they are gone. And in the hospital wing, before the time turner is used, there is a moment. Harry lies on the bed, and his friends are around him, and Dumbledore stands in the doorway, and Harry thinks about everything that has just happened. Sirius captured, Peter escaped, the truth known by the wrong people, the innocent man about to lose his soul, and he feels the particular helplessness of living in a world that does not care about what is true, that processes things by paperwork and precedent. That will destroy someone who is innocent because the forms have been filed and the decision has been made, and it is easier than admitting the mistake. Cornelius Fudge is not a villain. He is something more ordinary and in some ways worse. A man who has decided what reality is and is not interested in it being otherwise. Harry is 13, and he already understands this about certain adults, and it makes him tired in a way that is older than he is. Then Dumbledore says 3 turns, and something shifts, and there is a chance after all. They return to the hospital wing. The timepiece clicks back into the present. Around them, their various past selves are asleep or unconscious, and outside the window Sirius is flying away, and in the morning Cornelius Fudge will be furious and baffled, and Snape will be absolutely certain that Harry Potter was responsible for Sirius Black's escape and will be unable to prove it, which is its own kind of satisfaction. And Peter Pettigrew is still out there, somewhere in the dark, and Voldemort is still out there, and nothing is fully resolved. But a man who was innocent is free, and a creature who was innocent is free, and Harry did that. Harry and Hermione and the particular complicated magic of time itself did that. In the days that follow, Harry sits with what he knows now. His parents, his father's friends, the real story of that night, which is so different from the version he has carried all his life. He thinks about Sirius, who spent 12 years in Azkaban surrounded by Dementors while innocent, and who stayed sane by holding one true thing in his mind, that he was innocent, that it was not despair, that it was not a happy thought, but it was true, and the Dementors could not take truth the way they took joy. He thinks about his father and his father's friends when they were young, 4 boys who gave each other animal shapes, so that one of them would not be alone in his transformation, and he feels the weight of all that love, complicated and imperfect, pressing against the underside of history. Lupin resigns. He has to Snape, in the manner of Snape, has let it be widely known that the new defense teacher is a werewolf, and in the wizarding world this is still enough to end a career, which is unjust but true. He meets Harry in the entrance hall to say goodbye, and he hands Harry back the Marauder's map, a magical document showing every corridor of Hogwarts and every person in it, which Harry found earlier in the year and which Lupin has been keeping, And he says Harry's father was the best man he ever knew, among other things he says, and then he is gone, and the defense against the dark arts position is empty again, which feels like a very particular kind of loss. The Patronus, Harry's Patronus specifically, is something worth sitting with a moment because of what it is. The charm, which is enormously difficult and most adult wizards cannot produce at all, produces a guardian from your own happiness, your own truest memory of joy, something solid and silvery and made of the best part of yourself. Harry's is a stag, a full corporeal stag, enormous and bright, which charges the Dementors and drives them back and saves Sirius's soul and saves Harry himself. Harry sees it from across the lake, across a distance, and for a moment wonders who cast it, because it is so large, so powerful, and then he understands. He cast it. From across the lake in the past, he cast it because he knew he would, because he had already done it, because the loop of time closed around this moment with his Patronus at the center. And the stag's form is not an accident. James Potter's animagus form was a stag. James Potter's nickname among his school friends was Prongs, for the points of his antlers. Harry has never known this. He produces the shape of his father's animal form from his own happiness without ever having been told, and this is the kind of thing that the universe does sometimes, quietly and without announcement, the kind of deep rhyme that runs beneath everything. On the train home, headed back to London and summer, Harry receives a letter. It is from Sirius, wherever Sirius is, and it is brief and warm and contains one thing Harry needs very much: permission. Harry has been invited to stay with the Weasleys, to visit Hogsmeade next year, to generally be less imprisoned at Privet Drive, and all these things require a permission form signed by a guardian. And since Sirius is technically Harry's legal guardian, James had named him so long ago, Sirius can sign them. He also mentions that the firebolt was from him. Harry folds the letter carefully and thinks about the year just ended, the way it has shifted around him, the way certain stories have ended and others are just beginning. And there is one more thing. Outside the train window a tiny owl circles, a small ridiculous creature that belongs now to Ron as a replacement for Scabbers, and it is called Pigwidgeon, which Ron finds embarrassing, and Hermione and Ron are laughing at it, and the English countryside is rolling past in early summer green, and Harry tucks Sirius's letter in his pocket and looks out the window and feels something he is not always able to feel: hope, not the absence of danger, not the resolution of everything, but hope, which is its own kind of Patronus, which can hold the darkness back. The year has been a year of echoes, of the past arriving unexpectedly and rewriting the present, of people turning out to be other than what they seemed: Lupin, who seemed merely tired but was loyal and extraordinary, and carrying a secret he had held for decades; Sirius, who seemed monstrous but was innocent; Peter, who seemed dead but had been hiding in plain sight all along; the Dementors, who seemed merely like prison guards but were something more philosophical, more intimate, creatures that fed on happiness itself, that made you feel there was no good thing left in the world, that your worst memories were all you had ever been and would be. And against them, Harry has learned to cast a silver stag made of his own joy, his own truest happiness, and the stag is named for his father without Harry knowing why until now. He thinks about time. About the way the time turner worked not by changing things exactly, but by revealing that there was more to what had already happened than anyone had seen. The past was not a fixed and finished country. It had corridors in it, possibilities that had always been there, waiting for someone to walk them. They had not altered the timeline, they had completed it. Every moment of that evening had already contained both its first occurrence and its second. The version where they didn't know and the version where they did, layered over each other like two transparencies held up to the light. Harry thinks this is probably how all of history works in some sense, that the things which seem settled and done have more inside them than they appear, and that understanding comes later, sometimes much later, and reorders everything that came before. He thinks about his parents. He does this often, but tonight, riding the train south through the summer countryside, he does it differently than before. He has more of them now. He has Lupin, who knew them, who carries them in his memories like objects he has handled so many times they have taken the shape of his hands. He has Sirius, who loved his father the way you love someone when you are young and everything is still being decided, when friendship feels like it will last forever, partly because you cannot yet imagine forever ending. He has the Marauder's map, which his father helped make, which has his father's sensibility all through it, the foxiness and the mischief, and the small artful touch of having the map itself be rude to Snape when Snape tries to read it. He has the shape of his father's animagus self made out of his own happiness. He is, it turns out, not as alone in the story of his parents as he has always felt. They are here. They are in people and in objects and in the forms his own spells take, and they are not coming back, which is still the truest and hardest thing, but they are not entirely gone either. The train slows. London approaches. Harry Potter is 13 years old and the son of James and Lily Potter, and the godson of Sirius Black, and the friend of people who have stood beside him in dark places without flinching. And somewhere out in the world, a man with sunken eyes is sleeping free under an open sky. And somewhere much closer to Voldemort, a small scarred man with one hand is creeping through shadows. And somewhere between these things, Harry Potter is riding a train home through the English summer. Which is not his home exactly, but is at least a place he can survive for 2 more months until September comes again and the doors of Hogwarts open and everything begins once more. And it is enough. For now, in this moment, looking out the window at the green summer world, with Sirius's letter in his pocket and the memory of a silver stag still bright behind his eyes, it is enough. He breathes. He rests. The story is not finished. It is so very far from finished, but the chapter is, and the night is long and the stars are many, and it is all right. It is all right. You can let your eyes close now. You can let the train carry you. You can stop holding everything so tightly and just breathe and rest. And know that for this one golden moment at the end of a very long and strange year, Harry Potter, who has survived so much, is simply a boy on a train going home. And the world outside the window is kind and green and endlessly, quietly unfolding. In the end, this sleepy summary, with its relaxing tone and warm light, is not meant to replace something. It is meant to point toward a much larger light. It is offered with care and with the genuine hope that something in tonight's listening finds its way into you as an invitation. The whole book is waiting. The real depth lives there, in every word they chose and every story they told, and every quiet idea they let breathe across a full page. Let this be the beginning of something you carry forward in the light of an ordinary tomorrow, and if this lamp has helped you in some way, a light keeps it burning for someone else who might need it too.